The printing of trillions and trillions of dollars. This is what the United States government is doing. Governments around the world are doing it, but the US is doing it at an alarming rate. And let me explain what is going on, why they're doing it, and where they're going with it. So they're printing trillions of dollars, flooding the system, right? They know that the system is going to collapse, right? So what they do is they cause wars around the world and they funnel the money, right? Perfect example is what's going on in Israel and what's going on in Ukraine. They send this money over, right? And as aid to help these countries. Then the people, the president, Zelensky and whoever else making some money, they get to buy their yachts and their mansions and all that kind of stuff, right? But then a lot of that money goes to contractors that are where? In the US, right? These contractors are lobbyists with politicians. They lobby behind closed doors. We don't get to hear about it. Unelected bureaucrats get to make decisions on where our money goes, right? That money then gets funneled back over to the US into the politicians' pockets. Now, what's the long-term scheme, right? Well, it's been a long-term scheme, but it's going to come to fruition a lot sooner than you think. That's where central bank digital currencies come. They're going to collapse the dollar by printing it to oblivion, blow the whole system up, right? Now, meanwhile, the people that are making all of this money, they're taking the politicians and the people who own the companies, the war machine, right? Everywhere where the money's going, right? They take that money, right? This is really what's happening. You guys got to wake up to this. They take that money, they buy hard assets with it, because regardless of the currency, a hard asset will hold its value, right? Over the long term. It may take a hit short term, but over the long term, a hard asset will hold its value. And it doesn't matter if the value of these things are calculated in Bitcoin someday, or calculated in CBDC money, or dollars, or euros, or yen, they're still going to hold their value over actually holding on to the dollars, right? They crash the system, completely just demolish it by printing and printing and printing and flooding the money overseas, and the money comes back to them. They all get rich at the expense of you and I, the taxpayer. This is why I love crypto. This is why I love Bitcoin. This is why I take a portion of all of my profits over the next year and a half when I make a couple $1 million, and I take that and I put it into Bitcoin for the long term. Because I think what's going to happen in the future is that all money, right? In the future, this may not be 5 years or 10 years, this may be way down the road, but eventually money will be tied to Bitcoin. Bitcoin will be the top of the pyramid. Let me give you a visual and show you what I mean. So excuse my art, as I'm not an artist, but everything now flows up to the dollar. Okay? Now, there's no particular order. The order doesn't matter, right? Really, I could have just put dollar and then everything, but I want to break it down. Stocks are calculated in dollars. Real estate, calculated in dollars. Gold and silver are calculated in US dollars. Food, goods, and services, right? Calculated in US dollars. All currencies around the world, right? Are calculated in what? US dollars. Literally everything you can think about in the entire world, right? Everything else is calculated in what? US dollars. It's the top of the pyramid. Now, in the past, we had something called the gold standard. Now, in the past, everything was tied to gold. It was called the gold standard, right? Whether it was stocks, real estate, right? Dollars were tied to gold. Food and goods, the only difference is that food and goods were tied to dollars, but that's irrelevant, right? That was just a form of currency, right? But it was still tied to gold, right? All currencies around the world, and then everything else, everything else. So literally, everything, right, went to gold. It was called the gold standard, and this allowed governments to have a free but fair playing field. What do I mean by that? Where you could only spend what you had in gold. You couldn't just create more money. And after World War II, this was the agreement on hundreds of nations that the US dollar, right, is going to be the strongest currency, but we're tying it to gold. That way the US dollar can't just go and spend all they want and like go take over the world, and they can't just go and start wars and literally what's happening today. Like, wake up and understand this. Well, where are we going in the future? Here's the future. Everything, currency, fiat currency, Everything else, food, goods, services, gold, silver, real estate, stocks, is all going to be tied to Bitcoin. Now, will there still be currencies? Yes, there's going to be currencies that we're using, whether it's dollars still, euros, yens, whether it's different cryptos like Dogecoin, who the hell knows? There might be a basket of different currencies. We're going to have something called a Bitcoin standard, not a gold standard, a Bitcoin standard, where everything flows up to it. If you read that book, The Bitcoin Standard, this will explain it in depth. Why do I think this? I want you to think about this for a minute. We need a gold standard because we need countries to be able to stop printing money and causing wars and just causing inflation and just destroying the middle class, and the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. That's because we have our money tied to nothing. It's actually a very simple concept. Just some of you won't believe it, but it's fucking true. So time to wake up. Why do I think Bitcoin? Well, if we're going into a world where central bank digital currencies are going to be a thing, and we're going into a world of AI, of virtual reality, of blockchain, right? And blockchain is going to be the future, and crypto is going to be the future, then why would you tie the currencies of the world in a more technological world, ever increasingly technological world? Why would you tie your money to gold? Why? There's some of you in the comments that just aren't going to get it, and you're going to say, no, it's going to be gold and silver and blah. No, it is not. No, it is not. You know who's going to try to do that? The BRICS nations. And you know what the US is going to do? Right? This is why the Bitcoin standard is going to be the thing. Because other countries around the world are going to go, we're going to go back to the gold standard. And the US is going to go, well, then we're going to tie shit to Bitcoin. And corporations, big companies, smart people, they're going to understand that that's a better option. The other reason, gold, there's an inflationary amount of gold. We don't know how much gold there is, right? They can mine really as much gold as they want out of the ground, right? We don't know when that will end, right? You don't know how much there really is. Whereas Bitcoin is on a blockchain. You know exactly how much there is and will be. And you cannot make more Bitcoin. You can mine it and make more until you get to 21 million. But after 21 million Bitcoin created, there will never be any more. So you don't have an inflation rate. It's the hardest asset ever created. Get it in your head. If you understand what I just did here, you understand that now everything is tied to a dollar, and you can print dollars, and there's infinite dollars, right? Which is causing inflation. And you understand that in the past, the reason why the world was such a better place when we were on a gold standard is because you couldn't just make more of this crappy fiat dollar, right? But then you understand that the gold standard will not work in a digital world, and it's all going to tie to Bitcoin, the hardest asset ever created. You will be thousands of steps ahead of everybody else. This is why I sell my profits into Bitcoin, a portion of my profits into Bitcoin. It is the new gold rush. It is the future of where the monetary system is going. And if you can understand this and grasp this, this will make you so wealthy beyond belief. This is how you create generational wealth.